Quick flashback. Remember when making new friends was as easy as saying, "Hi, want to play on the playground?" Hang on tight because by the end of this conversation, you'll see how that same playground courage can launch a midlife career comeback, even if the last time you touched your resume, MySpace was cool. Today, I'm hanging out with Lorraine Rise, founder of Career Uprising, former recruiter turned executive career coach, best-selling author, and the host of Career Uprise podcast. Lorraine has spent the last 10 years helping 500 plus professionals ditch the "I'm so stuck" mindset and land roles that light them up. In the next few minutes, Lorraine will reveal the one phrase that turns a career gap into resume gold, show why LinkedIn is your modern cover letter and how to make it sing, share networking tips so simple it feels like kindergarten again, yet powerful enough to open CEO level doors. Stick around because when the credits roll, that nagging, "Am I still relevant?" question is going to feel like ancient history. Lori Rise, welcome to Create the Best Me. This is an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you. Honored to be here, Carmen. I really love your show and the work that you do. So thank you for having me.
So before we get into today's exciting conversation, could you please tell the listeners and viewers a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So I am a career and executive coach, and I'm based here in the Washington, D.C. area. I've been here my whole life. I live in Northern Virginia, and Career Uprising is my company, and we are actually celebrating 10 years this month. I'm really, really excited. 10 years in business. I can't believe it. So what we do at Career Uprising is my team and I, we help people who are in that midlife stage to get through career transitions. We help them write their resume. We do coaching sessions, really just help people feel reinvigorated during their midlife in their career. People get stuck. People get in ruts. I would say stuck is the word I hear the most. And so I enjoy helping people get unstuck and feel relevant, feel modern, feel confident in loving life at that and loving their career at that midlife stage.
And, I'm going to say this morning, whilst I was getting ready for our recording, I went onto your LinkedIn profile. And I will say, Lorraine, I was so impressed with the testimonials on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we've been working hard, like I said, for 10 years now. It's been over 500 clients at this point that we've helped. Yeah. And it's very gratifying when you get that testimonial and you see that clients really are impacted by it. And it feels so good. I love it. So thank you for noticing that. We've been working hard on that for a number of years.
And one of the testimonials that really resonated with me was someone who said that, I can't remember if it was a female or male, but they had said that they were in their current job and they just felt stuck. And working with you allowed them to recognize what skills and talents they have to be able to find a job that was more rewarding and gave them that satisfaction.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's really hard to find that anyway. But the thing about the midlife stage is that you come so far on one career path, right? Whatever you are, you're an accountant, you're a teacher, or whatever you do. We work with people in all different industries. You start to get a little bit of your career as your identity too much sometimes, especially when you've been in a career for 10, 15, 20 years. So then when you feel like you want to change into something else, it feels like a disconnect. Something feels off. You're like, I've done this for 15 or 20 years. Well, I don't know what else to do. Or what else would I be hired for? All these kind of doubts and imposter syndrome come in because you've been doing one thing and now you want to go do something else. And you just feel that sense of disconnect or maybe a question mark. So people label that as stuck, right? That's where that feeling comes from. And what stuck really is, it's just a lack of clarity. It's just a lack of making a choice. It doesn't mean you actually are stuck. It's more of a mindset. It's more of a feeling. So that's what a lot of the work that we do with clients is. It's centered around acknowledging everything that you've accomplished and where you've come from, and then just making a conscious choice to go somewhere else, but allowing there to be a little bit of I guess, a contrast, right? Or almost like, am I allowed to do this, right? Because it feels different. It feels off. So I think that's where that feeling comes from for a lot of people.
And I think another thing that people in midlife, such as myself, may struggle with is that maybe the job that I'm currently working in, I created my resume 20 or 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And the format, at least in my opinion, has changed from that resume I created 20, 30 years ago to today.
Yes, absolutely. Well, a lot has changed. The whole job market, the way that we find jobs now has changed. What resumes look like has changed. LinkedIn is now more relevant. It wasn't 15 years ago if you were looking for a job then. And then, I mean, we're not even talking about AI and all the ways that that is changing the hiring process right now. And that is very fresh and something that I have to stay up to date with as well. So I can see why it's overwhelming for people, right? It feels very intimidating to jump into a job market that you feel like has left you behind because you've been busy in your role for all this time and as you should be and focused on that. But then especially when it's a separation that you didn't ask for, right? An involuntary one. That is really scary because it's just thrust upon you suddenly. And now you have to figure out, how do I update my resume? I got to brush up on my LinkedIn. What interview questions are being asked these days? There's all these things that you suddenly have to learn in order to get to where you want to go. And it's a very intimidating process for a lot of people. And I find that a lot of people at the midlife stage, especially, they've been with one employer often for a long time, which the younger generation, not so much. But a lot of people I work with are 50 plus or 40 plus at least. And that generation stayed at jobs for a long time. So the job market itself and the job search process kind of left them behind a little bit. It's scary.
Hey, since you brought up LinkedIn, I wanted to just ask this question. How important is keeping your LinkedIn profile updated?
The short answer is it's very important. But what I will say is it depends on what line of work you're in, right? So for example, there's a few industries where I would say, okay, we can probably get by without one. It doesn't play a big role in the recruiting process. So one of those might be somebody who's, let's say, in the federal government or somebody who's in the public school system, right? Those are kind of their own microcosm. They have their own recruiting process and their own little ecosystem for everything. So those people typically, if you're going to stay in that lane, probably don't need a LinkedIn. Almost everyone else is probably going to, because it's widely used in the private sector. And, and it's used in a lot of different ways. It could be that they are just looking at your profile to see if they want to interview you after you've applied, or maybe they're sourcing fresh candidates right from LinkedIn, even if you haven't applied. So you could get passively approached for an opportunity, or you could get reviewed and vetted before they call you for an interview. They may want to see who you're connected to. Are you posting anything? There's a lot of different things that can be reviewing. You can even have your certifications and credentials verified on LinkedIn. There's so many things that you can do. So short answer to that is very. Yes.
And how does your LinkedIn profile differ from your resume?
Well, we have to remember, that's a great question. We have to remember LinkedIn is inherently a social media profile. It's a professional one, but it is still social media and it works in that way. So what do we look for when we go to social media? We want something personable. We want something that humanizes it, that tells your story, shows your personality. We still don't really see that as much on resumes. Resumes are still a little bit more traditional, but LinkedIn has brought in this whole new ballgame where now I see a photo of you. Now you're telling me about your hobbies and your interests a little bit. Some people will talk about their family a little bit. It's a little bit more personable, and that's still pretty much at home on that platform because it's social media and that's what we do. We share. and sometimes overshare, right? So that's what I want to see. I want to see a LinkedIn profile that uses storytelling, that has a photo, gives me a kind of a peek into the person, right? The resume is still very much the bullet points of all the things that you did. That hasn't changed, but LinkedIn is now kind of an extension of your resume, and it's a more personalized, got more of a human touch to it.
So is it safe to say that your LinkedIn profile is almost kind of like back in the days when you were applying for college and they wanted to know what other curricular activities you did beyond your education?
Yeah, a little bit. I would say so. I tell people it's almost like the modern day cover letter as well, because it's kind of that first impression. That's the other thing to remember about LinkedIn is it's online and it's visible 24 hours a day, searchable all the time. Your resume, not usually. You can keep that to yourself and then apply selectively to certain opportunities with that. Anybody at any time can find your LinkedIn. So the reach and the visibility of it is far beyond the resume. So when we're working with clients, we don't write a resume and not a LinkedIn. We do both. We always do both. They need to be telling the same story. They don't need to be word for word the same, but they need to work in tandem with each other and also not have discrepancies as well. So we want to make sure that they're telling the same story. So there's no red flags in there.
So let's say hypothetically, you have someone who took a break out of corporate America.
Okay.
Because they wanted to maybe spend more time with their family before the kids went off to college. Let's say it's a woman in midlife. And now she's reached that point to where she wants to get back into the workforce, but the workforce has changed dramatically because technology changes. And she came to you for, where do I start?
Yeah, absolutely. So the starting point is always, what is it that you want to do? If you lack clarity on that, we don't go any further. That's the first thing, because a lot of people will start with, well, let me update my resume. Except that if we don't know what you're targeting, we don't really know what to write about and what to focus on in that resume. So getting a direction is the first step. Okay. So doing some in reflection, some introspection, maybe some research on some different career paths. What would I be qualified for? What am I interested in? What are my income targets that I need to meet? Do I want a large company, a small company? We want to ask ourselves these questions and get a nice profile, you could say, of all the things that you are looking for and the skills that you have and what you want to do. Because then our goal is to translate that into a couple of potential job titles that we can be targeting and we can be searching for. So once we have clarity on what our skills are and what we want to do, then we can update the resume. And whenever we have a gap, such as that, whatever it is, you took time off to travel, you took time off to stay at home with your kids, you were a full-time student, whatever it might be, we do want to address that on the resume. So we keep it nice and simple. We don't need to make up any fluffy titles or anything for ourselves. I don't recommend that. Just be honest. Put, career sabbatical, stay-at-home parent, the time, and then you can put a short description of what did you do? Did you do PTA? Did you do volunteer work? Did you take any courses? If you did any of those things, you can add those into the description, but just put a short slot in there in the work history. And I like to call it career sabbatical, something like that. Just saying that you voluntarily took that time off and it was intentional and a little bit about what you did. That's it. We don't need to explain necessarily what a stay-at-home parent, everything that you did. We know, we understand what you did, and people get that. So listing it is enough, but always address that gap. Because if you don't, then people will just wonder, what did you do? Were you just unemployed all of that time? If it's intentional time off, then it's to your advantage to say that it is.
And I think you brought up something that's very important and something that most of us overlook is the extracurricular things that we do when we take that time off, whether it be PTA or volunteering. Those are additional skills that we've acquired during that particular sabbatical.
Yes, absolutely. So lean into whatever you have, even if it isn't paid work experience. I want you to just lead with what you have. So do you have coursework? Do you have volunteer work? Did you find some other way to acquire that skill, even though it wasn't paid. Maybe you could do some pro bono work for your friend's business, something like that, right? And still list that on there because you still did the work. So get creative with how you can showcase these skills, and then just align that with a realistic target, understanding that sometimes if we've taken a large amount of time out of the workforce, we're not always going to return, unfortunately, to the level we were at, but the goal should be just to get back in it. And that first job you get might be a stepping stone. It might not be where you stay for 5, 6, or 10 years. Be okay with a stepping stone to just get you back into it. And then pretty quickly, you can, once you have more work experience that's recent, you can go on to something even better if you need to, or go back to school if you need to as well. But be okay with a bridge job as well.
And Lorraine, this is another thing that I think that when we first came out of college, started our first job, we tend to sell ourselves short. We take the first job that offers us a position.
Mm-hmm.
We take whatever pay they give us, they've offered us.
Yeah.
Now in midlife, how do you help people negotiate that? No, I'm not going to take that pay. I'm worth way more than that.
Oh, yes, you're right. Our priorities shift so much as we get older, right? We learn a lot. Hopefully we get more confident, but sometimes clients absolutely need help with that. So I think first recognizing that our goals and our values and our priorities are allowed to change. So what you prioritized as a 20-something, and I can tell you my priorities were so superficial when I started my career. They were. I just wanted to, get out of retail and into the corporate world, Monday through Friday schedule, nice big office building, right? Like I had all of these things in my mind that were so important. And then I got those and then realized, oh, I actually do care what kind of company I work at and what I'm doing and what my long-term plan is. So I think first, just allowing yourself to have that change, and then just doing some self-reflection and asking yourself, okay, what matters most to me right now? What's going to make this a meaningful move for me? And everybody's priorities are different. For some people, it's, I do need a certain amount of money to provide for my family. Okay, well, then that's a hard and fast requirement. If not, is it working remote? Is it working for a company whose mission you really care about? So allowing yourself to ask these questions, have your own answers, let it be different than what it was before. And then using your core values. I'm really big on core values, and I always help clients to develop their top 3, using those to guide you. Because, like I said, when we're in our 20s, like we don't really know what we want yet. So we just start taking things and getting experiences. But use the wisdom that you've gathered at this point at 45 or 50, whatever you are, and ask yourself, what have I learned? What have I learned about myself? What have I learned about what environment I thrive in and what matters most to me? And how can I channel that into a career path? Because you always can. You can always channel that into, okay, I work better in an environment in smaller companies, so I want to start up. Or I need the security and stability of a larger company, so I'm going to target those. Whatever that might look like, but lean into that wisdom that you have at the midlife stage and funnel that into some different career options.
And I think another thing that a lot of us struggle with, or this is something I struggle with, is bragging about yourself.
Yeah.
Showing why you are worth X amount of money as opposed to the money they're willing to offer you.
Absolutely. That is one of the biggest things I have learned in my years as a coach, that we are more likely to undervalue ourselves than we are to overvalue. We're always worried, oh, I'm going to overstate it, right? That almost never happens. It's usually always the opposite, that we underprice or just undervalue what we bring. Because I think maybe some of us are just taught that it's bragging or it just feels uncomfortable. But the thing to remember, you're not bragging, you're advocating for yourself. And I think there's a big difference. There's a big difference between those two words. And also, bragging to me just has this connotation of we're maybe exaggerating or saying things that aren't true. That's not what we're doing. I teach clients that you can advocate for yourself and be authentic and be honest, but be confident in what you have to offer. Because the bottom line is, if you're not confident in it, they're not going to be confident in it. And so this is all for nothing. The whole point of this is to land a job because you have the skills. So what are we doing here if we're not going to be comfortable with sharing what your skills are and what your value is? There's no point in going through any of this. That's just what this process requires. So I tell clients, yes, it's going to be uncomfortable at first. That's okay, but be willing to push through that discomfort and just see it as you're flexing a muscle. You're learning a new skill, which is to speak about yourself, not with arrogance, but just with confidence.
Have you ever had somebody come to you and say, I got this job, but I'm overqualified. How do I undo this? Or how do I position myself in the place where I should have been?
So if somebody maybe knows they're overqualified for a job, but they want it anyway, because it needs that happens all the time. Absolutely. I think you just have to be really transparent in the interview process and just share with them, I know I may look overqualified, but here are all the reasons why I'm still really aligned and connected to your values, right? My core values at this point, or my top priority at this point, is to land a job at a company where I can really make a difference. And that's very mission focused, right? And I've done a lot of research on your company and I feel aligned to this, this, and this. And that's the most important thing to me. So just explain to them that and acknowledge that you may have more years of experience than they're looking for, or you may be overqualified, but here's all the reasons why this does align with your priorities right now. And oftentimes overqualified just is their way of saying they think they can't afford you as well. So you can just assure them, I'm confident we can come to an agreement on the salary. I know I have a lot of years of experience. Here's why I'm aligned. We can have a discussion about the compensation. It's only one of many factors that I'm considering right now. I think it's all the more important why we need to network for our jobs, not just apply online as well, because networking inherently creates opportunities for you to have conversations, whereas online applications don't. That just shuts down the conversation. There's no human involved. You don't get a chance to explain your situation and actually connect with a human and share why you still want the job, even though you might be overqualified. They're just going to see your resume and go, too expensive, too many years of experience. So that's why networking, having conversations opens up so many more opportunities, because then you can just have a conversation with somebody.
I believe you posted a podcast about that, the importance of networking. So how do you network and feel comfortable doing that? Because I think a lot of us kind of like are in our little, even though we're maybe introverts or extroverts, we're still kind of in our little bubble when it comes to that whole networking.
Networking is probably the topic I coach people on the most, because maybe it's between that and the salary negotiation, but networking is one that brings people a lot of discomfort. A lot. I mean, it can feel very uncomfortable. It can feel just downright cringy and awkward. So I tell people, again, that's a mindset. So if your networking feels awkward and uncomfortable, let's do it a different way. Let's adopt a different mindset and a completely different approach, because it shouldn't feel that way. Oftentimes, though, that is an indication that somebody is being a little bit too focused on just getting a job immediately from that contact, and that's why it feels uncomfortable. So you have to resist the temptation to just make it all about, I need a job, can you find me a job? That's what we know in our mind that we want to get out of this. But if that's the only thing you want to get out of it, it's not going to be effective or comfortable networking. So you have to be patient. You have to see networking as something you do continuously, as a lifestyle. I've just adopted it as my lifestyle. It's something I do on a continuous basis. I met you. You're part of my network now. It's also just making friends and meeting new people. If you can approach it from that standpoint continuously, it's going to feel so much more comfortable, and it's going to work for you so much better. And you don't have to be an extrovert like me who, loves talking and I'm talking with my hand and everything. Like, it's really obvious that I'm an extrovert. You don't have to be an extrovert to network well. You can do it in your own way, just one-to-one. It doesn't have to be large events. You don't have to be giving a presentation to people or going on a podcast. You can just have one-to-one virtual or in-person coffees, small groups. There's a way to do it that's still effective, whether you're introverted or extroverted, doesn't matter. But the key is adopting networking as just a mindset and something that you do lifelong.
When I think about networking, I think about like when I was a child. It was so much easier to make friends. And that's kind of a way of networking. But as we get older, we're kind of like, ooh, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah. I think the making friends as you get older is just harder, right? It's something about, I don't know why, something about it is more complex trying to make friends as an adult than it is as a child. But that's all networking really is making friends. I think that if you approach it from that standpoint, it takes the immediate pressure off of it. And it's like, okay, I know how to make friends. I've been doing that since I was a child. You really have to think of it that way. So, but yeah, I think that as adults, we tend to complicate things, where maybe we're worried about social norms and what are people going to think. And we get imposter syndrome, and young kids don't always have some of that. It's a little bit more simplistic perhaps, but we need to strip a lot of that away, relax, enjoy the process, have fun, and just see it as meeting new people. That's it.
So Lorraine, how does a person know, or when do they know that they need to hire an executive coach such as yourself?
Well, a couple of ways. So one, if you're in a job search and you are just not getting results, because I have a lot of people who come to me and say, I've applied for 100, 200, 300 plus jobs, and I've gotten maybe 1 or 2 interviews. I mean, those are real numbers. I would say if you are feeling frustration, if you are not getting results, a coach can come in and offer you feedback on yourself and feedback on the hiring process, because it's very lonely process. You don't get a lot of feedback from recruiters or anybody, so you don't know what you're doing wrong, if anything. So a coach can just provide objective feedback and support for you throughout the process. I also have quite a bit of hiring experience. My former life before doing this was in recruiting. So I know the hiring process, so I can educate clients a lot on what is going on in the recruiter's mind. Why did they say this? Why did they not get back to me? I can provide a lot of information and insights in that as well. So I would say if you're not getting results, I also would say if you just don't know what you want to do next, and that's okay. A lot of people, all they know is what I'm doing now is not working. I don't know what will. That's a great opportunity for a coach to come in, show you lots of different paths, ask a lot of questions to help you determine what are your priorities, what are your values, and how can we map that to a career path. So sometimes it's the what, sometimes it's the how that people need help with. It could be either one.
And what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give based on the conversation that we have had today to help people get over that hurdle and find the job that gives them purpose and meaning, reinvigorates who they are, make them, feel like, yes, they're excited every morning to get up and go to work.
Yes. Well, I think the first thing is, number one, believe that is possible, right? A lot of us, as we go along in our life and our career, we get a little jaded and we start to wonder, can I be happy in my career? Is there a really great career or company out there where I can feel that way? Not everybody thinks that that's possible. So believing that this is a change that you can make, and that it's absolutely possible. So just getting in the right mindset is number one. 2, have a great support system. Start networking, start having conversations. Your family, your friends, your acquaintances, start engaging other people in this process because they want to help you. And so I would say don't go through it alone. Going through any kind of life transition alone is very, very challenging. Whether you're moving to a new city and trying to make friends, or you're trying to get a new job, this is a life transition. Get support. Go out and have coffee with friends. Get their advice, right? Get their support. Have somebody take a look at your resume. Just engage people in this process so that you're supported and not going through it alone. And then number 3, I would say do a lot of self introspection and be willing to ask yourself hard questions. Who am I? What am I good at? What do I want to do? What do I never want to do again? I would journal it. I'm a big writer. I love to journal things. I wrote a whole book, so I love putting thoughts on paper. But I would say really ask yourself hard questions about what has worked for you in your career, what has not worked. Be honest. What do you need to work on? What are skills you need to obtain? Put it all out there so that you have something to work with and that you have a framework and you can make change from that point.
Great.
Yeah.
Lorraine, where can people learn more about you and even begin to work with you?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I would say my website is the easiest place, careeruprising.com. As far as social media, LinkedIn is where it's at. I'm on a lot of platforms, but that is my main platform. That's my favorite one. So you can find me I think I'm the only Lorraine Rise on there, only one I've ever found. So it's a very, very unique name. So pretty easy to find. But you can follow me or connect directly with me on LinkedIn. You can go to the website as well. I wrote a book that came out about 18 months ago in 2023. It has a whole collection of all of my teachings as well. So if somebody wants to just kind of get a sense of what I teach and a lot of stories from my career, my client's career, they can go to careeruprising.com/book as well. But I would say LinkedIn and my website are the best places to go.
And they can also get inspiration from your podcast.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and I have the show, the same title, Career Uprising. It's on Apple and all the major outlets as well. Got 140 something episodes. I'm losing count. And you probably are too. Yeah.
And how often does your show come out?
This year I have committed to weekly shows. So every Monday there's a new episode. I used to be bi-weekly. Now, darn near close to every single week. It's really hard to get a lot of content out, as you know, every week, but it's every Monday.
It is great. Lorraine, thank you so much for coming on the show. I am overwhelmed with all the amazing information that you've provided here today.
Well, thank you for having me, Carmen. I'm a big fan of your show as well. So thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience. So thank you.
Thank you. And there it is. The networking handshake really is just grown-up playground magic. Your career gaps are chapters worth bragging about. And salary confidence starts the moment you decide you're worth it. If you're craving for more of Lorraine's wisdom or want to work with her team, head on over to createthebestme.com/EP125. All the links are waiting for you there. Love today's episode? Smash the follow button, share it with a friend who's ready for a career glow up, and meet me right back here next week for another conversation crafted just for you. Until then, keep dreaming big, take care of yourself, and remember, you are beautiful, strong, and capable of creating the best version of yourself. Thank you for watching. Catch you next week. Bye for now.